Hey there, and welcome to the ECM Podcast. I'm Friedrich Kunzmann, and I'm happy to be hosting this newest episode of the podcast and take you behind the scenes of new music on ECM Records. Today I'm joined by the great sax player and composer Joe Lovano, whose second recording alongside Marcin Wasilewski, Slavomir Kurkiewicz, and Mikhail Mishkevitz is called Homage, and was produced by Manfred Eicher. Joe talks about the evolution of his work with the Marcin Wasilewski trio, about the heritage that this new album falls in line with. He talks about ballads and how to not play something the way it looks, and much more. As one would expect, Joe dives straight in.
So, playing together, creating a sound as an ensemble within the music, my originals, Marcin's originals, and touring through the last few years has been some really beautiful, expressive music. So I had a week at the Vanguard open, and with the help of the Polish ministry and all, we were able to secure a week where they came to New York.
Yeah.
And we had a beautiful week, man. It was, I think, in November 2023. And I decided to book the Saturday afternoon of that week to document the group at Rudy Van Gelder's studio, which is one of the iconic studios in music. And, the room actually that was, the studio power station and guitar, that room was patterned off of Rudy Van Gelder's studio. The cathedral ceiling, the wood. When you walk in there, it's like a smaller Studio A at power station,
Mm-hmm.
So the real beautiful, comfortable setting, and
Lots of history.
yeah, working with Don Sickler and Maureen Sickler, who was Rudy Van Gelder's assistant for 20 years or so. They really know that room, and the history in that room brings out a lot of beautiful feelings, for everybody that walks in the room that knows anything about the music, and for musicians. And I think for Marcin and Michael and Slavomir, they couldn't believe it. They were playing at the Village Vanguard and recording at Rudy Van Gelder's studio in the same week, So the music throughout the week was unfolding every night in a very special way. So when we went into the studio, we were able to do the date in a 4-hour, 5-hour moment, and really happy with the results and the sound and Manfred's post-production expertise. Just really thrilled with this upcoming release for Homage.
Yeah.
Which is actually a piece that I wrote and played at the Elbe Philharmonie in Hamburg.
I was going to ask you that. The piece Homage. Are we paying homage to someone or something specific? Or
originally, I wrote the piece. That concert was Manfred's, I guess, his 80th year celebration.
Absolutely.
And featured Gidon Kramer and Dave Holland and Ralph Towner and Norman Winston and all some just amazing music, And we played with the trio with Marcin also.
Yeah.
And I played in a group with Avishai Cohen on trumpet.
Yeah.
Nasheed Waits and the pianist
Tigran Hamasyan,
yeah. So I wrote this score, and I called it Homage, paying homage to Manfred.
Yeah.
And the ECM history, let's say, I grew up from the beginning listening to the ECM recordings, Facing You, Keith Jarrett, Conference of the Birds.
Sure.
Bar Phillips and Dave Holland, duets, and the recordings with Jan Garbarek, and there was one record called Sart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with Jan Christensen and everybody. I think Pales Danielson's on. And that was a guitar quartet, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it? I'm wondering, was it a guitar quartet? I have to make sure on that one.
Yeah, check that Sart.
You know what? It was with Terry Ripdahl, I think.
Terry Ripdahl.
Right? Yeah.
And that was an early ECM recording.
And it did have Bobo on piano, so it was a quintet, yeah.
Also, right. So like growing up with my dad's record collection, my dad played tenor, and he heard Charlie Parker and he heard Lester Young live and played in jam sessions with Gene Ammons and Coltrane and alto, in the early 50s. So my dad had a great record collection. And then those ECM recordings I started to bring into the collection,
Yeah.
And it was so great, man. And all the Keith Jarrett, especially with the quartet with Paul, Charlie, and Dewey. When I first heard them, early 70s, that record Fort Yawa had just come out.
Yeah.
And man, those are the cats I wanted to play with. And the music that was giving me a lot of direction, in trying to develop a way of playing, personal way of playing.
Yeah.
10 years later, I started to play with Paul. 1981.
In the trio, probably, or Psalm?
Psalm was the first recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I first met Manfred and went in the studio with him, with the quintet, with Paul, with Billy Drews on alto, and Ed Schuler on bass, and Frizzell and myself. And trio really emerged from playing a lot of quintet music with that group, and then with Jim Pepper on tenor in the mid 80s, and that's when the trio emerged. And Bill and I played with Paul for 30 years, man.
Yeah.
So one of my personal direction givers was that trio for sure. I mean, I grew up with that, with you guys, just going at it differently than anyone else, and
that was a real amazing period for both Bill and I. It was a springboard for all things, and just the concept of the repertoire and how we tried to communicate and create a sound as an ensemble, That springboard has reflected in all of my recordings and concerts, and this new group with the Paramount Quartet with Julian Lage, Santi Dabriano, and Will Calhoun for sure, and the quartet with Marcin.
Yeah,
recording Homage.
It's all coming from a long line, from a heritage of work and a body of work from so many different people, and of you connecting with all those people throughout decades at this point.
Yeah, man. And so that piece, I put that score together to play and create for that concert at the Elb Philharmonie in Hamburg, and so we started to explore that.
how abstract can we imagine this plan of the song?
It's a score with no notes, but feelings written in a sequence of events. Different combinations of solo, unaccompanied, duets, trio, quartet.
So the structural information kind of?
It's a score. So we just tried to follow that score. And the night with Nasheed and Avishai and Tigrum, it had a different shape, but it was that score. We played through with the quartet that whole week at the Vanguard, and it was taking a different shape every night. That take for the session became an important take for the band and a concept about how to try to play together.
Yeah.
Create a melodic rhythm within the tonal tapestry of what's happening, playing in all 12 keys and all rhythms, and that is the concept of the Paramount Quartet, and it's stemming from the concept playing with Paul and Bill and my trio Tapestry.
Yeah.
One of my tunes is called All 12. And that's like all 12 tonalities, but all 12 keys, and how you can create within that idea where every note is in every key.
Yeah.
And we're modulating and creating melody with that idea in a polyrhythmic way also, where all tempos.
Which is kind of a Schoenbergian concept, if you think about it, right? The idea of having 12 keys in every key.
It goes to that music, Schoenberg and others, but working with Gunther Schuller for me really put me in the middle of it with him and his orchestrations and his, in a way, everybody you play with, you study with, And I've had a chance to study and play with lots of folks. And Gunther Schuller was a big influence from the earliest time when I first went to Boston in the early 70s. He was president at New England Conservatory at the time. And the whole third stream music concept and department was going on there with Jimmy Giuffre and George Russell and Rand Blake and others, even though I went to Berkeley, I was going over there too and participating in some things. And that's when I met Ed Schuller, and started playing with Eddie, and getting involved in that whole world of that whole study about melody, harmony, and rhythm, and how it could be put together in such a spontaneous, creative way, And when I listen to Keith Jarrett and others improvise full concerts of improvised music, they're coming from that kind of approach. I always heard that.
Yeah.
For myself, And so that's been a direction for me that's been really key to development,
Yeah.
For sure, the quartet with Marcin, they had that approach in their playing.
And this is your second time playing with them, yet there's this striking difference musically to what you guys did on Arctic Riff in 220.
It's a second recording.
Yeah.
We've been playing together on tour since Arctic Riff.
Yeah, and this one has a much more, I don't know, I would call it like a spiritual feel to it, with longer forms of free-flowing interplay. It has a real beautiful character that is very coherent throughout the record. And it feels like some of your work that you've been doing with the trio Tapestry over the past years also plays into it. There's something really comes together here that wasn't audible in the same way a couple of years ago. You hear that there's a transformation.
Well, for sure, and playing at the Village Vanguard, also calling the spirits in a way in that space that week gave the group some other kind of deeper foundation.
Yeah.
As a trio for those cats and as a quartet for us, because there was a bunch of other tunes that we were playing that aren't on the recording that we were touching on in performance.
Yeah.
You know, in a real straight ahead way and a real swinging way. And so when we play live, the repertoire from both recordings come through.
Yeah.
But concept has definitely grown from playing together and having those cats come to New York and feel the spirits in the Village Vanguard, which, by the way, this year is celebrating its 90th year anniversary. Max Gordon opened those doors in 1935 on November 22nd.
And besides your own music, you also have a pass at Love in the Garden, a tune written by the Polish violinist Zbigniew Seifert, as far as I can pronounce it. It's the song that opens the album. Who brought this to the session, and how did you approach it?
You know, Marcin brought that tune in, and we had touched a few tunes of Tomasz Stanko also, and I think this might be something that they play as a trio, or they played with Tomasz Stanko. I remember one record, Zygmunt's music, some years ago that had Jack DeJohnette on it, and I think John Scofield might have played it. I remember hearing that years ago, and he played so beautiful, man. But I had never really played any of his music, and on one of the tours, the last tour that we did, we touched on that tune. So Marcin brought it to the session, and it just unfolded.
It's really beautiful. It's a beautiful rubato take on it with such a natural line for your sax and also for your phrasing. It sounds made for you guys.
Well, you know, the thing is to not play something the way it looks, and to try to create it as you play it. You know, and when you're playing ballads, that's the heart and soul, really, of the music, I think, you know. And if you can be expressive and play with interpretation all the time, that's the roots of jazz. When you listen to Ben Webster, you could listen to Ben Webster play the same song 50 times, and it's going to be a whole other way, whole other expression of the melody from, let's say, the written page. You know, it's an approach about creating music within the music, and that's the approach for me, especially on ballads.
Talking about ballads, you have that ballads album where you do it exquisitely in quartet.
Yeah, playing with Hank Jones, the master players that bring out that complete expression within the music. That when you follow the sound and the energy and the ideas and the tones that are happening around you, it takes you places.
For sure.
But to develop a way of confidence and being able to do that, that's another study and another way, you know.
Yeah.
Within the music, I think, is the deepest way of expressing yourself, you know. Our week, we just did 12 sets at the Vanguard playing with Trio Tapestry. Marilyn Crispell and Carmen Castaldi was quite a journey every set. With that in mind, you know?
Yeah. Also beautiful combination of players, and that trio has also gone somewhere different. It's also a transformation that you hear from one album to the next that is so exciting to witness and also to experience.
Yeah, thank you, man. Well, 3 recordings, the repertoire, we have a lot of repertoire. And now that repertoire is expanding also, and playing gongs and percussion within is what I did also with Marcin for the first time.
For the first time, I think that's one of the qualities that really binds it together in my experience, in my ears, because it really gives it another space.
Well, it's also like so nice to communicate with the way Michael plays drums. It feels as one when we play together.
Yeah.
Contributing ideas on my particular instruments that I brought to that session, and was playing throughout the week at the Vanguard also. Just a handful of gongs and some light percussion sounds,
Yeah, it's not a lot in information that is given, but it's an expansion of the landscape that you've set up previously with the monologue you have on saxophone or the dialogue you have with the other players.
Right, and playing the tarogato also.
Yeah, I always wanted to ask you what made you pick that one up and not say the soprano sax or
well, different instrument. I grew up playing in the woodwind family, and I knew about the tarogato throughout the years. Never really had one in my hands until around 2003 on a tour with the Saxophone Summit with Dave Liedman and Michael Brecker, our band. Yeah. We played in Budapest, and a friend of Dave Liedman's came to our gig at the sound check with a whole table. He filled this table with instruments, wood flutes, different ethnic instruments, and he had the tarogato was there. And he sat in with us that night, and we played John Coltrane's piece, India. Mm-hmm. He sat in and played the tarogato. So I was digging it, and I was saying, oh, yeah, oh, wow. And after the gig, we went to the hotel, and we were hanging out, and that's when I bought that first instrument from him. That was 2003. Mm. Started to play it right away. It's half saxophone, half clarinet. So the left hand is like a saxophone fingering, but open holes like a clarinet. The right hand is Albert system clarinet, where there's a different key work, right? Mm. It comes apart like a clarinet. It's like a soprano saxophone range, right? And that's when I started playing it. And then through the years, I played in Budapest a number of different times and met some folks at the factory, the Stovatzer company, which is like the Selmer of the tarogato. Mm. And I've been working with that company, and now they made me a model with different kind of key work and some ideas that I gave them, and this model that I'm playing right now. But on the session, I was playing the original one that I got that was made in 1939. Mm. Right? This is a new production just coming on the market now,
Yeah.
Which I play on the Paramount Quartet record.
Okay.
The moment of this instrument.
Mm.